Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Third and 20 Dynasty Podcast. I'm JT, joined by Frank and Lounis. We are without Jake today. He's feeling kind of sick, so us benevolent co-hosts gave him the day off, and we hope he feels better. I'm just gonna kick us off straight into the news and notes, and this is something that I just ticked me the wrong way, guys. Like, we just traded for Kyler Murray in our orphan league, where we gave up Zach Wilson and I believe was it 2 firsts for Kyler?
Zach
Late,
Wilson,
a late
109,
first.
202.
Yeah, an early
109,
second.
202 for Kyler.
That's still
And so Kyler's agent, Eric Burkhart, released a statement essentially saying we're committed to the Arizona Cardinals and winning, but we're gonna need more from the Arizona Cardinals, which includes more personnel decisions for Kyler and more money.
he wants a monster contract.
Yeah, he wants a giant contract, and it just rubbed me the wrong way. With I think we're all in agreement that Kyler is a very good quarterback, but like you gotta show us more Kyler before you're getting paid this crazy contract, and then you're just not helping your image already. Where he was seen sulking on the bench when they're losing. I mean, obviously they're losing, but like he's all alone. Like there was reports coming out that like he's not attentive during meetings, and his agent like. I'm just not a big fan of Eric Burkhart either. I know this isn't really dynasty related, but like Eric Burkhart was Johnny Manziel's agent.
Yep.
Obviously we saw how that went. He's kind of just like this arrogant guy who like he just like straight lies about his players. Like the Panthers last year, now Frank's gonna take this the wrong way, but the Panthers last year tweeted out the videos of the negotiations, which is rare and it's a cool inside look. But it was Eric Burkhart and the Panthers front office staff, I forget who the actual person was, going back and forth about Dan Arnold. And what Eric Burkhart was saying about Dan Arnold, where he's like a top tight end and he needs like top tight end money kind of thing. And it's like,
He's right.
What are we talking about here, Eric Burkhart? Yeah.
I see no qualm
So-
with this.
He sounds like a good agent.
So
Yeah, right?
yeah, reeling this
What are
back
you going to say? He
into
sucks?
he's not the best. But look, if we're bringing
I'll be back in half a second.
okay. Reeling this back into I don't even know what he's doing. Reeling this back in though to
I
a
know
dynasty
exactly
conversation.
what he's doing.
Does he have a Dan Arnold jersey? Yeah, he's the Dan Arnold jersey. All right, just trying to get us back on track. It's just like I'm sure there's a lot of people that have Kyler Murray that are starting to push the panic button in terms of, well, yep, here's Frank with the Dan Arnold jersey. If you're listening to us,
That's max tight end money, baby.
Frank's got Dan Arnold.
What up, boys?
Cardinals jersey, by the way.
Mark Andrews contract.
All right, getting us back on track here, Frank. I just think
I'm ready for war now. I hope you know I am ready for war.
Yeah, I know. I kicked this one off on the wrong foot already. I'm just all right. What? So where I have my issue, and I think where a lot of fantasy players, that dynasty players that have Kyler are running into issues is, well, you're good, but you're currently ranked in the tier of Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert. Like you're with those guys, and if you're going to be a nuisance, and you're going to have these, kind of off the field issues, like how much faith can we put into you, and do you still belong in that top tier with those guys? Lounis, you have so when you put Kyler on top of our league, you have him in multiple leagues, Kyler.
Yeah.
Are you? Is he still firmly in that top tier group?
To me, yes. I think I'd be more worried if I was a Cardinals fan than as a person who has him in Dynasty, because I don't care where he plays, he's going to put up fantasy numbers. So if him and the Cardinals fall out and he goes to a different team, he'll still be putting up good numbers on a different team. But I think I think it just comes down to ultimately, like, he's a quarterback, he's small, and he runs a lot, and I'm sure he wants to get paid that huge money instead of like having to wait another season where like there's the risk of anything. But I agree, it's not a good look. Like and I mean, like, the agent, I thought that was a pretty dumb statement by the agent to put out. But as someone, like, if you have him in fantasy, I wouldn't really be worried. Like, I don't think it's a situation like they didn't say like, oh, he's not going to play games or something. Like, he's going to play. He's still one of the elite young quarterbacks in the NFL. I don't have a problem with him wanting to get paid this offseason. I just didn't like the approach they took with all of it. Would be like
I'm going to be completely honest. I don't see what the fuss is. I really don't. Like, I feel like this sort of thing has happened before where players have put out statements around holding out and whatnot. Like,
Yeah,
I
but
don't know
has it
what's
ever
gotten
been like
into
a
people.
top tier quarterback guy other than like Aaron Rodgers, who's just recently, and
The
Aaron
Dak
Rodgers has
situation a little bit.
MVPs and
I mean, dude, do we not
Dak-
remember Le'Veon
but-
Bell was putting out raps
right,
about how
but-
the Steelers
but-
weren't going to pay him?
But
Like-
with all these guys that you're mentioning, right? Like they're in their contract years. Like they were looking to get paid like their contract years. Like Dak didn't even hold out. He played and got, broke his ankle. This is Kyler Murray, who he's just in. That was his third year, right? He just played it in his third season. Like, I don't know. This is how it works. Like, you get signed to your rookie contract. Like, you play it out, and in teams, when we're talking franchise quarterbacks, they got, that's the cornerstone that you build your team around. So they gotta be careful with it. Now, to me, it's just like, yeah, the risk for them holding out a little bit longer and waiting to pay you is, it could end up turning into a Dak situation where now we got to pay you a boatload more money. Or it could be like, obviously I don't think he's Daniel Jones or Sam Darnold or those kind of players, but, you could falter and you might not be worth that same kind of money. Or you could get injured like Dak did, but, your injury is more long-term injury or something, like it's not like that broken ankle where then it heals and Dak has a little bit of recovery. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe it's his shoulder like Baker, which could like actually screw you up for a while. I don't know. Like to me, it's just like, why? This is at the NFL. It's like you get signed to your rookie contract, you wait your time, and then you get paid. Like everyone, you don't see Justin Herbert putting out statements saying the same thing. Lamar is the guy who just, ran around and got beat up all this season. He's not putting out statements like that. And Lamar has won an MVP and actually like done stuff for the Ravens. Like, yeah, Kyler has improved your team record a little bit, but you're at Kyler's agents tweeting out, acting like they didn't build a whole team around him. Like Rondale Moore didn't work out yet, but you went and got Rondale Moore. You traded for Zach Ertz in the offseason. You went out and signed J.J. Watt. You brought in big names. Like, it's not like the team isn't building around you, Kyler Murray. They traded for DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, but guess what? Even with all those acquisitions, that's an under 500 team without him. Pay the man. I see no problem with it. If you're that team, go get the bag. I have nothing against it. Me
I think
personally, I wouldn't do it because I mean, I if I were in that position, I think I would just value like kind of going the more, I don't want to put it like this, but I guess this is the way that people do put it, the Tom Brady route, where it's like, okay, I'm going to take a contract that's less than the current market value because I want to bring in the squad, because I just think that winning's a little more important than the contract, personally. With your legacy and whatnot, you can make more money if you win and you're like the top dog in your franchise history and whatnot. But like, dude, if he wants to go get the bag, go ahead. Because guess what? That team's trash without him. They're nothing.
That's the issue, though. Where you're saying, like, if he goes out and gets the bag, that's hindering his team. Like, you just can't go out.
Yeah, but guess what? You get Kyler fucking Murray. Last time I checked, having Kyler Murray never hurt. So,
right,
yeah. No,
if they had leverage, go ahead. Like, go ahead. Start Chris Streveler. I fucking dare you.
Well, okay.
That was the point I was gonna say. Kyler has all the leverage in this situation. He knows how valuable he is. Like to have one of those like top 5 young quarterbacks in the NFL with his arm talent, rushing ability. Like if they don't have Kyler, it's hard to find a quarterback that talented.
The thing, this is a business. If he played like shit next season and threw 30 picks and whatnot, they'd be thinking about cutting him. Well, guess why can't Kyler and the players do the same thing back to these teams? Why can't you say, well, you're a bottom 500 team without me? We've seen what happens when I'm injured. This team is a shell of its former self. Pay me or trade me to someone who will. Go ahead, no problem.
I guess that's fair, but don't come out, Eric Burkhart, and be like, "Oh, we're committed to winning and everything."
You just don't like Eric Burkhart.
I hate
you don't
Eric
like
Burkhart.
Dan Arnold.
No, that might be part of it. But like, don't come out here and be like, "Oh, we're committed to winning and everything." When you're, what you're saying is, hey, like, you just want a bunch of money, which I mean is fair. You want a bunch of money because you're a good quarterback, but don't mask it all into this PR.
I mean, honestly, I think you're right. If Kyler came out and was just like, guys, let's be real.
Yeah,
This is a
it would be
500
so
team
much
without
better. You know,
Like-
you don't have to do all the antics of deleting them off your social media and everything. Just come out and be like, I want more money, and I would be way more understanding of that. Where I'd be like, yeah, Frank, like he, you know, this team sucks without him. They literally had, didn't they have the first overall pick and back to back? Or no, they were. Josh Rosen was what?
They
2
were
or
9
3?
and then into 1.
Yeah.
Oh, Josh Rosen was 9.
Mhm.
I
Oh, yeah,
believe he
okay,
was
okay.
9th. Yeah.
He was in the top 10.
whatever.
But dude,
They're-
this is just how
they're bad.
2022 works, JT. All right, the way that you tell someone you're angry at them, you
It's
delete all the
deleting them.
Instagram pictures.
Yeah,
all right.
Which
You
alright.
do a couple of tweets, write some cryptic stuff, and
Tinder girl JT's turning into.
if
Boomer
you're
JT
really
being
pissed
upset
off, you
about
go on
that.
someone
Boomer
else's
JT.
podcast, right? Like,
Yeah,
Yeah, the Aaron Rodgers route.
yeah.
so that's 2022 for you.
To
Well,
me,
Kyler, we'll have you on here if you want to voice your frustrations.
Well, we got to get Dan Arnold first, right?
Dan Arnold, yeah.
I mean, if I am Kyler Murray, I can see where he is. We're spending a little too long on him, but I could see where I would be frustrated in terms of like you're stuck in a division where the 49ers are sticking around forever. Like this is a really good team, and they're bringing in their young, flashy quarterback. The Rams just won the Super Bowl, and we just saw how committed they were to going all in. And you know, it looks like they're going to be trying to run it back again this year. And then the Seahawks, if they keep Russell Wilson, they're no slouches either. Like they have a decent team at least. Like this is not an easy division, and you know the direction that the Cardinals are in right now. While they brought in a bunch of big names, they're a bunch of aging big names. So I get it, but it's just don't be like, oh, I'm committed to winning. Unless he's trying. The only other thing is
let's
get Cliff
spin it
Kingsbury
towards
out.
Dynasty real quick because
okay.
we, at least in my opinion, somehow bought a dip on Kyler Murray because
Yeah, I'd still be buying the dip.
listen, I love Zach Wilson. Like I'm one of the biggest Zach Wilson's guy out here, but like Kyler Murray to me is a top 5 dynasty asset and a
Yeah.
top 3 dynasty quarterback. So I just
top
like
3?
if you can get. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
okay, Justin Herbert, there's an
Justin
argument, but
Herbert
I
I
almost
have
think it
over him.
depends on context because if I'm building a team for longevity and maybe more worried about the future, yeah, okay, I can see the argument for Justin Herbert, maybe even Joe Burrow. But in terms of winning a season, Kyler Murray has got just as good a shot as anyone to be QB1 in the year, right? It's like
guess,
him and
but-
Josh Allen are going to be the betting favorites because he's got the crazy rushing ability. And he's
Yeah,
got a
but-
crazy arm. Like
Justin Herbert does run the ball a decent amount. Like it's not like he doesn't run.
It's
Yeah,
not
but
he
Kyler
doesn't,
Murray- it's
but
not-
Kyler's on a
It's not
different
Kyler
level.
Murray, but I mean, I don't know. Justin Herbert's no slouch.
I mean, no, but rushing.
listen, I never said
yeah.
Justin Herbert was a
Justin,
slouch.
I think Justin. To me, I think Justin Herbert's clear and far above Kyler, and this could be my bold take of the day. I'm not sure if I have Kyler ahead of Lamar. I still really like Lamar.
Yeah, I mean that's fine, but
I like Lamar
I'm
much
more
more,
worried
yeah.
about if I can move someone like, and this might really hurt me to say, but I might do it like a Najee Harris, a DeAndre Swift, Javonte, Trey Lance. I would personally do Jamar Chase, but I think I'd want to get something on top to like move into Kyler. If I could do something like that, I'd be very happy. If the Kyler manager is pissed off at Kyler or worried in any way. If Kyler had finished the season strong, his play would have demanded a new contract. Instead, he fell apart, and now his agent is doing this. The thing is, though, is that team is nothing without him. But let's move on. That's enough.
He
Kyler.
was. He
was
did
an
have that
MVP
injury
candidate.
too.
He was an MVP candidate through 10 weeks, had the injury, and also DeAndre Hopkins was gone. That's a big impact on that
Yeah.
offense.
Tight
It
ends
does
getting
suck.
paid.
It does suck that, you know, Andy Isabella and Rondo Moore. I mean, we might touch on Rondo, but
Yeah.
you got those guys when you could have had like DK and their player here. We haven't seen much from the rookie tight ends taken after Rondell yet, but we'll see. All right. Anyway, moving on. Yeah, tight ends getting paid. So we got Ian Thomas, who just got a contract and then immediately was facing misdemeanor charges for, I guess he had some kind of altercation with the police where he tried to run away. I mean, whatever. He got paid, though, is the point of the story. The Panthers felt like they need to give him like $16.5 million over 3 years, I think was the deal. I'm going to look that
Something
up
like
for
that, yeah.
confirmation. And then we also have David Njoku, who's looking to get like $10 million.
10 per, yeah.
Yeah, from the Browns, which to me says a lot about the current state of the tight end market, where we're paying these kind of guys that big of money. I don't know how you guys feel, but there's a lot of people that are taking this into context of the draft and saying, well, maybe these tight ends aren't as good as we thought they were, because why are they already paying these guys this much money? And well, looks like the free agent tight ends aren't that great. Why else would these guys be getting this kind of money? I think that's logical.
I mean, I think Ian Thomas, the consensus, at least on Twitter, was that he got pretty damn overpaid. And to be completely honest
made no
with you,
sense to me.
I'm gonna agree with the consensus there.
Yeah.
I don't hate Ian Thomas. I think he's an underrated player, but I mean, not anymore. So he's a really nice blocker, which is nice, and he's like solid in the receiving game, but I feel like the Panthers, Matt Rule, man, I like you. I like you as a guy. Right? I think you're a good coach. But you're making it damn hard for me to be like, oh, Matt Rule, fringe top 10 kind of coach. Like, I feel like every move he makes, it's like, why? Why are we doing this, bro? Like, I think you're good with developing players and whatnot, but like, can we stop the bullshit? Like, come on.
He's putting his faith in the wrong players, I think, and it's kind of killing him.
Well, who do you want his faith in?
Not Sam Darnold and Ian Thomas.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah. So, and then you get the reports like, oh, yeah, we're going to trade CMC. Like, why? What is the point? You just gave the contract. Like, why? He's sick. And I guess unless you can get a crazy price, but I really doubt it with the running back situations right now.
You're not getting a lot back for CMC in like an actual NFL trade.
There's a number of decisions, and apparently with Njoku, I've seen a lot from Brown's Twitter that like, and now there are some arguments on this, but that Njoku was really good last year, and that he kind of deserves potentially getting a double-digit contract. I think that, I don't know if it's per year or in total, but maybe I have no idea. I'm not really super up to date on the contract stuff, but
Pro Football Focus is saying it's looking like it might be something along the lines of 3 years, 11 mil per is roughly what he'll be getting.
I mean, the Browns with Stefanski. Stefanski has kind of adapted the Browns into a heavy tight end kind of offense. They'll consistently run 3 tight ends. That was one of the reasons why they were really successful towards the second half of 2020 was because they would run these jumbo sets. Nick Chubb, and then a receiver like a Donovan Peoples-Jones, just another big receiver that could be good in the blocking game and be a mismatch. And then if the defense really went heavy to try and match him, then they'd just go 5 wide with 3 pretty decent tight ends, and Njoku, Hooper, and that third dude, what's his name? Yeah, Brian. I actually kind of like him. But man, 11 mil per seems steep for Njoku, right?
It does. I mean, 11 mil per for Njoku. Do you remember when people were wondering if Dallas Goedert got overpaid, making 14 mil per? If Njoku gets 11,
I mean, is this boosting any Njoku for you right now? Like,
well, I think it does a little bit if they sign him to 11 mil per, because you're not giving that contract unless you plan on him being like heavily featured in your offense. Obviously, you could pull like a Giants with Kenny Galladay, where it's just not the case.
It's just weird because
most times, yes.
Dude, the most targets. I'm looking at this at the game the season last year. The most targets he's got in a game was 7 against the Chargers, and he had a really good day. 7 targets, 7 catches, 150 yards, touchdown. Other than that, 3 games with 5 targets. Everything else under 5.
Well, all right. This was Baker Mayfield's injured season, so it's hard for me to like fully knock him on that. I mean, the passing attack as a whole was just not great this year. I think though, to me, like he's still in the wasteland. He might become like a waste lord, I guess, if we're talking in those terms. Like
he's a new waste lord.
He moves up a little bit, but like jumping from tight end, you could jump from like tight end 25 to tight end 15 like that's almost like no.
Easily.
what is that, a
market
point per
value.
game?
Yeah, point per game higher.
Yeah.
That might get you into the top 5. Like,
look, he's a young tight end still with, obviously very good draft capital, who wasn't like he's had success where
He started his
in
career well, and then he got injured.
Yeah. So I guess he can still fit that mold of like a tight end 1 kind of player where he's already had you want to see your tight end have like a tight end 1 season in their first, I forget if it's 2 or 3 seasons, but he had that, and I think that was Baker Mayfield's rookie season.
Yeah.
So like maybe
They're banking
but,
on his potential because it was never last year like consistent play. It was a lot of like flashes, and they're
so
just
apparently
banking on it.
Apparently on Keep Trade Cut, he's worth an early 3rd. I think I'd take the early 3rd for him.
I'd have to see
Njoku
who's
or
on
an
the
early
board.
3rd.
Yeah, I think I'd take the early 3rd.
I think I'd take Njoku. Just if they're giving him that contract, 10 or 11 mil per.
Yeah, but the thing is, we've seen this before. We've seen the Browns in particular get contract, and I think part of it is because the NFL realizes the value of good tight ends compared to, I guess, just the average fan. And it's not necessarily about getting a George Kittle or a Travis Kelce. Obviously, you want a really good tight end, but a tight end that not only can play well, but just kind of fits the team, fits the system, does what you want him to do, right? Because being a tight end, you get a lot of that not sexy workload in. I mean, look how many games George Kittle is being used in the blocking game, right? And you look at a team, even a team like the Bengals, who you could say, oh, well, yeah, they could definitely use a Kelce. Like, dude, CJ Uzomah was good, and you saw the difference when he was injured in the Super Bowl and kind of like late in the playoffs for them, how much worse their offense was, both statistically and from the eyes. Like, they weren't moving the ball as well, partly because that running game was nowhere near as good. And you were playing better D lines, but I mean, you don't have your tight end there. That makes a huge difference on your blocking ability. So,
yeah.
All right, looking at the tight end market though, like David Njoku compared to the rest of these guys, all right, the people that I take David Njoku over that are currently ranked above him, I'd rather Njoku than Troutman. I'd rather have Njoku than Higbee.
yeah.
That's about maybe Irv Smith Jr. And the rookies are still weird to me. Like, I don't really like Jalen Wordmeyer that whole lot, so maybe I'd rather have Njoku than him. But like, he's tight end 22 right now, and only really justify like 3 or 4 players taking him ahead of. So
yeah, I don't like any of those tight ends you mentioned. I would sell them all for their value if possible, even slightly under what their value is on Keep Trade Cut. Like, I think I would still sell Njoku for a mid-3rd. It doesn't need to be an early 3rd.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's not a lot of players in the mid-3rd that I think I'm going to like this year.
I think that there's some very solid receivers that will be there in the mid-3rd, much better than last year.
Well, we might touch on one of those receivers in a little bit. All right, moving on to our next segment, trades we're doing, and this is an interesting one I have for you guys because it's one that I was
surprised when I saw it.
Yeah, I was as well.
And it's not one that like, I'm sorry, it's not one that I'm like desperately trying to do, but like it's one that I've been contemplating for a little while. I have Patrick Mahomes in the 3rd and 20 league. I have him in our home league. And I'm thinking about potentially moving him. The issue is it's just like, what is actually a fair market value for Mahomes? And this is such like a niche problem, I guess, but I guess you could say the same for the likes of, we just talked about Kyler Murray, Josh Allen's up there, Justin Herbert, like what's actually fair market value for them, right? So like, if I was moving Patrick Mahomes for say Justin Fields, what is fair on top of Justin Fields for Patrick Mahomes? I've been tossing back and forth trying to figure out what I think is actually like a fair value offer for that.
It's a good question.
Because Justin Fields, like, he's kind of a boom bust player at this point, right? Where he's ranked quarterback 11 or 12 on Keep Trade Cut, I think.
Yeah, and he's not like a sure thing yet.
Yeah, hasn't really shown any, like, he's shown good plays, but like he hasn't. It's not like a Justin Herbert even like what Joe Burrow had in his season. Yeah, he's quarterback 10 on keep trade cut, but there's like a bunch of them right around that same range.
Well, that's a weird person that you mentioned because I personally am way lower on Justin
Yeah, you are.
Fields
Okay,
than
well,
consensus. So like,
pretend it's Trevor Lawrence because they're valued like the same on keep trade cut.
yeah, which I find wild, by the way. Uh, I'm thinking off the top of my head, right? Like, if you offered me Trevor Lawrence, a really early first, like a 101, and then another halfway decent player. Now I guess the question is how halfway decent.
Yeah,
Like
who's that half decent player?
Yeah.
Mike Evans, maybe. Like, what do we
Okay, so
think
we're
about
talking
that?
like
So you get
like
101
still pretty
Lawrence,
good
Mike
player.
Evans.
that's like a late first. I think Mike Evans is probably still
Yeah,
valued
somewhere
around.
around there, right? Like a late first, but
All right. Well, in this example, I'm going to just use Justin Fields instead of Trevor Lawrence because I like Justin Fields better. But
Same.
you know, same difference. A really early first, like, are we talking 101 or are we
101
talking?
this year.
101.
It's close. Yeah, I just don't love. Even Brees Hall, I think, is like. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Brees
what
Hall, I
about
think, is,
what
like,
about
fine. Traylon
102
Burks.
next year or 103 next year instead?
Okay. Yeah, I'd do that. Justin Fields. Well, you're giving the person Patrick Mahomes. They can't be that bad, I guess. I mean, maybe.
It's a
I
good
still
point.
might take Mahomes there. I still might take Mahomes in that deal.
If it
Mahomes-
was guaranteed like 102, even though like to JT's point, like it's unrealistic because you never know, like the team you're just trading Mahomes to, they're probably not going to have that high a pick. But let's just say like hypothetically it was for sure 102 2023. So that Evans and Fields, I think that's a pretty fair offer. I just know for me, like if I was trading Mahomes, I'd want, like, I know the rookie QBs are tempting, but I kind of wanted someone like I feel kind of safer about long term that's a little bit more established. Like a trade that I would do is maybe like Mahomes for Lamar plus, like Lamar and like then like a first or whatever assets, like, or Mahomes.
Yeah, I agree, but I think that kind of deal is really tough to do in general and kind of even right now where obviously everyone knows Mahomes is good, but
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like his price is increased. If anything, I think it's gone down from last year. Because Mahomes is while obviously Mahomes is still great, and everyone realizes the guy's like a top 2 asset consensus. I mean, he went from 1 to 2, and he went from being the obvious best player in Dynasty to now there's an argument. And to me, that has drove his price down just enough for me to say, I think I'm going to hold the guy. Because as someone who has Lamar, I'm just going to keep Lamar, to be honest. I don't want to give Lamar on a first for Mahomes. Like, maybe there are some people that would still do that, but I just find that might have had to happen last year than this year. Like, if you could do it, go ahead, but
let's get a little wackier and zanier with this trade for 1 second. Like, let's say in the 3rd and 20 league, right? I have Mahomes and Derrick Henry, right?
Okay.
Well, if I package those two guys together, say I still want Justin Fields. Say I go after the Justin Fields, Justin Jefferson. Like, how much more on like are you doing that straight away? How much more on top of the Fields Jefferson side would you need? Like,
Fields and Jefferson from Mahomes and Henry.
yeah. So according to Keep Trade Cut, it says that the Justin side would still have to add on the likes of a 105 in this year, Mac Jones, Travis Etienne, Cam Akers. I think that might be a little overkill.
I was gonna say I think it's a first, but I don't think it's as high as 105.
Like Justin Jefferson's either wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2.
Yeah.
yeah, but
Mahomes
I'd
is
much
Mahomes.
rather have Mahomes than Justin Jefferson. I think that there's like a first round pick potentially. I mean, depending on the first, but plus difference.
Okay,
between
but
those two players.
I'd rather Justin Fields than Derrick Henry. I'm not sure if I think most people would agree with that.
Yeah.
I mean, Keep Trade Cut.
Yeah, well,
has
that trade you mentioned because of Henry, it's weird because as a team, like if we were to actually do this trade, aside from the values that are on Keep Trade Cut, like the Mahomes Henry package is going to be going to a contender. Like
yeah,
a rebuilder is not going to be fine.
That puts you in a contender spot right away.
So at that point, I mean, I'm still taking the Mahomes side and by a decent margin in that trade.
Yeah,
And
so
I
what
like
on top
Justin
of that?
Jefferson a lot.
What on top of that would you even need?
I would
Like
need
a
another flashy piece. Like,
like a
I mean, it doesn't have to be
2023 mid
105. It
first.
could be like, I mean, what's a receiver that's equivalent to 105 this year? Um, Wide receiver 20. Who's around there? Hollywood,
Devontae
Yeah.
Smith.
Devontae Smith. Yeah, Devontae
You think
Smith.
those guys are worth 105?
Well, he just said wide receiver 20. I know Devontae Smith is like wide receiver
No.
19. I think Devontae Smith would be close to 105 in this draft. Yeah. I know you're lower on
Maybe.
him.
Yeah, maybe. Well, I'm also lower on this draft though, which is
That's true.
where things get weird. So yeah, maybe. I don't know. There's a couple wide receivers I think I'd have out of this draft over Devontae, but now we're getting into
like a-
different.
But still,
Yeah.
I think that Mahomes is still the number one overall dynasty asset, and I just want to keep him. And like, I have him in one league, and I'm not interested in trading him really whatsoever. I just don't want to. It's a 6-point
Yeah,
passing
it's-
touchdown super flex league. I think he's just the dude. I'm very happy, and
to-
especially long term with him.
So to me, I guess I'll just wrap it up here. Where it's nice having someone that like I'm not, neither of the leagues I have him in are 6-point passing, but it's nice having such like a surefire, like start forget, like it's just Mahomes every week. But like he's not giving you that much of a positional advantage over. In fact, like he's actually behind a decent amount of players in terms of like we were talking about Kyler or Lamar or. I don't even know if he beat Justin Herbert this year in terms of fantasy points. I'm going to look it up. But, like he's not significantly better. You kind of just have him for the long-term security, essentially.
Well, I think the other thing too is I looked a lot at quarterback data last year, looking at what the predictors would be for success long term for quarterbacks, and it's passing touchdowns to me. Unless you're basically right now Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, you have that crazy level of rushing ability, more so than Deshaun Watson and Russell Wilson when he was more of a scrambler, right? Like, because those guys, you needed to still be a sick passer. You didn't get enough rushing production from them. That was more, I mean, we defined this on an earlier pod. It was like rushing floor versus rushing ceiling, where Lamar and Kyler don't have to have crazy passing numbers to be a QB1 and a high end one at that.
Mhm.
They could legitimately pass for less touchdowns and a lot less yards because their rushing was that crazy.
Mhm.
But Deshaun Watson couldn't do that. Like, that floor boosted him up a little bit, but you still need him to be a damn good passer to be a high end quarterback. Looking at more of the pocket guys, Aaron Rodgers in particular, the reason why he's great is obviously A, because of the longevity, but B, like, he's going to fluctuate between high 20s in passing touchdowns to like low 50s around the
Yeah.
passing record,
Mhm.
where Patrick Mahomes has had back-to-back seasons 37, 38. Like, that's pretty darn good, but he also has that upside. I mean, second year in the league, he had 50 touchdowns. Like, I personally believe that he's going to have another one of those types of years, and that could easily be next year.
Yeah, well, there's the thing of he just, it's been Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, which are not, they're no slouches in terms of weapons, but they've just been flailing looking for that next weapon, whether it's they missed on, I'd say it's been a miss on CEH. Mecole Hardman, that's a
Yeah.
miss. Like
It's been more than a miss to me. This is a fucking disaster.
Yeah.
They're just missing that extra piece that I feel like they could have solved, whether it be with like everyone points to like, oh, you could have had
I
Jonathan
can't-
Taylor over.
I can't wait for them to
Yeah.
draft a receiver in the 4th round this year, and everyone ends up drafting him like early 2nd in fantasy drafts.
Well,
Just from the overhype.
where was Cornell Powell going this year? Because whatever it was too high.
He's going like the 3rd.
Yeah. All right. Just something I've been thinking about, but not exactly tied to. I might put him on the block in our league and see if I actually get any intriguing
Parker
offers.
will probably call you.
That
All right,
Parker, don't send me. It's not going to get accepted.
I want to get into two things that I've seen with the trade market recently.
Okay.
First is, and this is not necessarily, this is more of a conversational thing. I've been thinking about it because I do like Calvin Ridley, right?
Mhm.
And it seems like every day that passes, I've seen the rumors that Calvin Ridley's going to be traded. It really does feel like he's going to be playing football at the start of next year and on a team and in camp. His value right now is still pretty darn low for a player that has produced like he has and has the upside that he possesses, right? I mean, Calvin Ridley, he checks all the boxes of a player who could easily be a wide receiver one next year as long as he's on the field. Is there any interest for you guys at trading for him at his current price? Because I've seen him being moved around, and his value seems pretty low right now.
I just checked Keep Trade Cut, and if I could do a 1-for-1 deal of Amon-Ra St. Brown for Calvin Ridley, I'd see Amon-Ra. Give me Calvin Ridley.
Oh, 1,000%. Amon-Ra's been getting a little bit overhyped.
What'd you say, Frank?
Amon-Ra's been getting a lot of hype. He's been getting a lot of hype from how he finished the season.
I mean, yeah, all these players he's ranked around. Mike Evans, 108, Elijah Mitchell, Amon-Ra. The only one I'm thinking about keeping in that scenario is Elijah Mitchell. As of right now, 108, I would want to move because it just looks like the players on the board I'm not going to love there. I mean, I guess the question now is that is it going to take more than that to acquire him?
I would assume at this point it would, because like what you were saying, there hasn't been like actual news on him, which I think people are taking no news as good news. Which I don't know.
No, there was the one thing. The Atlanta GM kind of came out and said like they'd be open to trading him.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've seen some of the beat reporter guys saying that. Oh, well, there's a decent chance that Ridley's going to be traded at some point.
Like the GM said, like if he needs like a change of scenery, we can like try to accommodate it.
So obviously the teams I've seen, the number one team I think everyone's seen is the Patriots. Is that an improvement for Ridley? Like where's a dream scenario for Ridley? I don't know.
Oh, the dream scenario.
Yeah.
I don't really care about the dream scenario, though. I think that he's good enough that I just want him anywhere. I would like
him in New England. I just think he'd get an insane amount of targets. I got to think what would be the dream scenario.
I mean, the dream scenario to me is like obviously a Kansas City or like
a Buffalo.
Buffalo, like a Buffalo would be crazy. Just Buffalo, I guess like to me, I just want him attached to a good quarterback, not even because I think he's going to produce more, but because then I 100% know that his price is going up. So if I trade for him, I could stonk him if I wanted to. You'll have like his value will just increase to the point where he's way more liquid. Right now, it's still wonky because even though I like Calvin Ridley a lot, there's this little voice in the back of my head saying I just don't want to go into the risk. I'm still too skeptical. That's why I haven't traded for him in any of my leagues so far, is that I still am, I guess, a little bit too skeptical. Yeah, Ridley could be good in Green Bay with Rodgers. I mean, yeah, you could name anywhere. Like Vegas would be a good spot for Ridley with Derek Carr.
Yeah. The Chargers.
Anywhere these playing is
bad places for him.
Yeah.
All right. To me, like, I am not going out of my way to trade for Calvin Ridley because I think his keep trade cut price might be a little undervalued right now compared to what consensus actually feels on Calvin Ridley. He's also kind of one of those sneaky, deceptive ones that I think he's more likely. Him and Terry McLaurin, I think, like they're older than most people would think they are. Like, there's going to be a point in time where they're 27, 28 in like a year or two, and just automatically, based on everyone's preconceived notions, their value is going to go down. And I'm not really willing to risk laying out a super amount of capital to pick up those kind of players when I'm not extremely confident that their production will be great, So if I'm giving up to sum it up, like if I'm giving up someone like an Amon-Ra, fine, because I think Amon-Ra is overvalued. I don't really think Amon-Ra is going to outproduce Calvin Ridley. Like I'm pretty confident that he won't. A healthy Calvin Ridley that's actually playing, I'm pretty confident will just destroy Amon-Ra. Amon-Ra. But then if we're talking about like I'm pulling up like other players Frank mentioned Elijah Mitchell. He's another one that I'm just like not super big into. But you know, probably could get Drake London from this draft class, who I think is like right around where that draft pick, whatever draft pick gets you Drake London. I think that's what you could probably get Calvin Ridley for. I'm probably taking Drake London. Like,
I completely agree with. I think that's exactly how I feel on Calvin Ridley. You just put it in better words than I could.
Yeah.
The other player I wanted to mention, and this is someone that I have in the 3rd and 20 league, and I am gonna look to sell him now. And I mean, I've just been looking at D Hop's price on Keep Trade Cut for a while, and he was kind of in the dumpster for a little bit. But now you look, he's been getting some hype on Twitter. I've seen a lot of people saying, "Oh, well, this is the D Hop, buy him. He can easily be a top 5 guy." And I mean, I'm a little bit on the fence, but because of this little boost in hype, I do think that if you want to get rid of D Hop, which I have personally been thinking about doing, it feels like now is a decent time if you think that like danger is on the horizon. And I guess I'm saying that because look at Mike Evans last year, where okay, yeah, Mike Evans after getting to grips with Brady was playing well, but if we remember week 1 where he had one bad game, that primetime game against the Cowboys, his value tanked. Right?
Yeah.
He was all of a sudden worth like an early or mid second after that one game because of the age and the fact that he didn't produce on a primetime game. Like that could easily happen to D Hop. And if that, especially because he didn't play well last year, if he doesn't play well the first 4 games of the season,
His value completely
you'll
tanks.
probably never get a first for him again, barring him being the wide receiver 1 after that.
yeah,
I think even now it's tough to get a first. Like I think,
Yeah,
like,
but you could maneuver your way in there. You could do a thing where you
You
give
just
like
need a
D
little
Hop
bit
in
on
a
top.
second, a late second, a D Hop in a third, D Hop and someone else. You could get the first if you really wanted to. Kind of like
if you throw
Mooney
something
last
on
year.
top of Hopkins,
Well,
yeah.
I'm normally the guy that's against giving up, that kind of late first for someone like DeAndre Hopkins, but I'm just at this point I've become so disillusioned with this draft where even like if you're telling me it's David Bell versus DeAndre Hopkins, like that is close for me, but I think I just stick with DeAndre Hopkins even though I really like David Bell. After that, I think it's Hopkins over everyone. So yeah, I mean, maybe I am that guy that's giving up that late first for DeAndre Hopkins because I don't. If we're talking 2022 first, yeah, see ya. I'd rather just take the production.
So you're saying that D Hop right now more of a buy than a sell at his current value?
If that's actually truly where he's around, like I'm looking at like Michael Carter is ranked around him right now, Matt Corral, like
Yeah, I think he's like in that
yeah.
late first, very late first kind of area
What
right
an
now.
interesting fall from grace Matt Corral has had so far, where he only got injured in the bowl game. Like we haven't seen, like nothing has really changed other than his injury, which isn't insane. But it's just like
I think it's just Pickett. I think it's just Pickett and Malik Willis have increased.
We want to know what the other problem is too. Is that Matt Corral, like his bad tape is just horrible, man. Like he's.
Well, I remember watching. We were looking at Kenny Yeboah.
Yeah, Kenny Yeboah, and yeah, that Arkansas game 2 years ago was so he straight up lost him that football game. It was so bad. You might get a late first, but it'll be tough. Yeah, you may have to give up a little bit on top of D Hop. But I think that JT is correct that in a decent amount of leagues, if it's a 111 or a 112, there will be a good amount of people that would want to do that.
I mean, if I'm looking on the board right now, you have the top 3 running backs of Hall, Spiller, and Walker gone. You got the top 4 wide receivers of Burks, London, Wilson, Bell. They're all gone. That's 7.
Probably top 2 QBs.
Yeah, Pickett
and Willis
gone. Yeah. And I'm staring at the board there. That's 9, I think. Two quarterbacks, 3.
So yeah, take another receiver off of there.
All right, whoever Jameson Williams or whoever you have as your 5th wide receiver. I'm looking at that board. None of the people after that really are. I'm like, yeah, I really need to get this guy. I mean, is DeAndre Hopkins the guy that I pivot into? Maybe, maybe not. But if we're talking at the price, like he's wide receiver 28, I guess, on Keep Trade Cut, and he can legitimately be a top 5, but I think even more realistically, top 10 wide receiver. Yeah, it's fine to me because in most other drafts, I'm looking at that kind of caliber player as more of like a mid second, like Jameson Williams versus like T Higgins or Brandon Ayuk as like a prospect, and Brandon Ayuk, but
Well,
Jameson
Brandon
Williams
Ayuk was a
versus
second. Yeah.
yeah, he
He's a second
was,
round
but he had a
pick.
weird prospect profile is the thing. I'm talking like Jameson Williams versus T Higgins. I think T Higgins is just a much better prospect. Or who was I really, obviously this was wrong, but I really like Terrace Marshall, even though he wasn't exactly the greatest prospect. But if I was looking at the board, Terrace Marshall versus Jameson Williams, I probably would have taken Terrace Marshall. That's probably wrong, but that's
Probably.
that. Terrace Marshall is just a mid-second round guy. That's what I'm looking at. I'm thinking these 2022 first, late first, or more like the 2021 mid-second, 2020 mid-second.
Jacob Smith's roasting you, JT, for having David Bell in your top 4
Oh,
in the chat.
Ha!
Jacob Smith needs to go look at David Bell. Then I think that's probably consensus. To be fair, I mean,
I have Jameson.
I'm pulling
Williams.
No,
I'm pulling
I
up
think
the rookie rankings
like there's
right
the
now.
consensus top 3: Wilson, Burks, London, and then I think the consensus 4 is Jameson Williams right now.
I have Jameson at 4.
Nope. Go look at David Bell versus like Ohio State. Go look at David Bell. You want to talk about?
I have Jameson
Chris
Williams,
Olave,
David Bell in the same tier. So
Chris Olave is currently
any
ranked
qualms.
ahead. David Bell. Go watch David Bell roast Chris Olave's team. Like David Bell is just.
All right, but real quick, back on track with D-Hop because
Jameson better.
I said I was going to fight you on this episode, JT, but I'm actually agreeing with you a lot. That's the concern with me though, is that I think that D-Hop is not like the injury was to me what really killed him last year. He was still averaging like 12.6 points per game in a year where he wasn't getting a ton of targets, and it was a little bit weird. The beginning of the season, he was kind of he was just scoring a lot of touchdowns, I guess. But I agree. I think that he could be a dude that still has 2 good top 12-esque finishes in him, which is why I don't want to sell that for like potentially less than a late first.
It kind of reminds me of Adam Thielen, I think a year or 2 ago, where he had a really injured season and people were like completely out on him pretty much. And he came back and he was like wide receiver 12. So people who bought him cheaper that offseason, if you were a contender, you got pretty much a low end wide receiver production at a way discounted price. I could see something similar happen with Hopkins because the beginning of the season was weird. Like Rondale Moore was getting a ton of targets. Christian Kirk was scoring a lot, and then like that kind of cooled down as the season went on. I think you're right, Frank. I agree with you. It's pretty much down to a health thing with Hopkins.
He's just I still can't tell you. I feel like every hour I switch my opinion on Hopkins. Of like, okay, now I want to buy him. Oh, now I want to sell
him.
I just can't fucking make up my mind, and it's actually driving me crazy. I think right now I'm just holding. But I don't know. I just wanted to bring that up.
All right. Let's see where we want to move to. I guess we'll talk about who we're buying at that. We saw this on Reddit, so we're not going to take credit for it. But some Reddit poster, I'll get his actual name, so I'm not stealing it. James Apologist. Funny name. I like the name. James Apologist.
Is that Jake?
Yeah, it might be Jake. Put out who you buying that everyone's selling. Basically a blurb about, okay, who's everyone selling that you actually want to go out and buy. Typically what I think the consensus answer normally are like receivers that didn't do great the previous year, rookie receivers that didn't do great. There's been a new wave that kind of goes against this and shows why that's actually a bad strategy of getting the underperforming rookies. I've gotten roasted in the chat before about this one, and I'm not even going to spend a whole lot of time because
deserve to be roasted.
Yeah, I'm battling about him all the time. But Baker Mayfield at quarterback 27, like people are like, people can't. He's like nuclear waste on your team. You can't get rid of him quick enough.
We got Jameis Apologist with the post, and we got the Baker Apologist with the analysis.
Like, I don't know if it was last week or 2 weeks ago where I had my rant about Baker versus Davis Mills. Like that was an actual thing going on in the Dynasty Rat. Like it's gone too far, people. The hate. This is going to be a theme about the players that I'm saying that I'm buying that everyone else is selling. The hate has gone too far. And what Baker, I'm taking Baker over every quarterback that's coming out this year. Like Baker's,
Whoa. So
yeah,
if you
Malik
had the
Willis, Kenny
chance
Pickett, Matt
in
Corral,
Dynasty, you'd
Snell.
rather have Baker over Willis and Pickett?
Yeah. Now, if you're asking would I rather have Baker than pick like 104, well, that's a different story.
No, but like in like a straight up trade, like if someone had Malik Willis and offered you, him
yeah,
for it.
like this is
That's
Baker
crazy.
Mayfield. Baker Mayfield was the 101 in a year where there was a lot more highly touted quarterbacks than this year. Like Kenny Pickett is a fifth year. Like it took him 5 years to become a first round, potentially first or like quarterback pick.
Joe Burrow was old.
Maybe top 10. Joe Burrow was a different story though. Joe Burrow was behind good players on who Ohio State had transferred. It's very different than Kenny Pickett. I think Kenny Pickett's receiver Addison made him. I'm kind of a Kenny Pickett hater. Sorry. Malik Willis, like Malik Willis does have that crazy ceiling where if he ends up working out, fine. But I'm okay missing on Malik Willis. Now, at the price of 105, I'd rather have like a 105 than Baker Mayfield. but I'm not drafting Malik Willis at that 105 kind of pick. So that's where I'm at. Like there's so much rookie infatuation with a class that's like not even that good. And you know, I think Baker Mayfield to me is clearly better than these guys.
Clearly.
Yeah, like just take Baker Mayfield as a Baker Mayfield as a prospect and compare him to any of these guys, and he blows them out of the water.
I'm sure as a prospect,
and then take his rookie season and what he did in his rookie season, and you know what he did on the Browns, and it was a very solid rookie season. It's just I'm not going to get into apologizing for Baker Mayfield anymore, like defending him and everything. Like I think Baker Mayfield is just criminally undervalued at this point.
I will give you one thing with Baker is that the dude is wildly just volatile, I guess is the right word. Like, I mean, he went from the late part of 2020 getting the Browns their first playoff game. He was, in terms of numbers at least, and you look at the tape, it was great too. A top 5 quarterback the second half of 2020. I mean, the Browns were putting up 40 points a game. I mean, you remember it wasn't too long ago that Browns Ravens primetime game where Lamar came back from the locker room doing whatever he was doing to win him the game. Like Baker Mayfield was going crazy that game, but I don't know. I think that I'm not gung ho out there buying Baker Mayfield though.
He still did this year too before his injury. Like people forget about his shoot. I mean, you brought it up this podcast, his shootout game against Justin Herbert and the Chargers, where you know Baker Mayfield can put up those fancy numbers. It's just I don't know. People are giving him too much.
I agree that the hate has gone too far, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to be the guy buying him.
Baker Mayfield to me is a consistent quarterback, like you know, mid quarterback 2. So what's that put him at? 18. 17, 16. Like I'm not like super high on Baker Mayfield, but like that's going to be his fantasy performances, I believe. And I just think that's, you know, he's undervalued at that rate. Like
well, if you wanted to, like if you have him pegged at a similar points per game to Tua Tagovailoa, you could move Tua into Baker and get a good amount of value on top of that right now, probably.
And I would do that. I would do that. I would take Baker plus.
Take both those guys.
All right. I mean, yeah, we're not talking about like this isn't like you know Trey Lance and Justin Fields and these flashy.
Yeah, no,
guys.
I know.
Like, I'm just like I'm not trading Baker Mayfield. I'm not trading those guys for Baker Mayfield.
Robert Miller's asking, what would Baker Mayfield's best case scenario be? What do you think, JT?
Yeah, well, probably. I mean, his best case is like I don't see him as a quarterback 1. Like maybe a low end quarterback 1, like maybe 12 if he has like a crazy touchdown season. But I think like, you know, quarterback 14, quarterback 15 is like pretty easily achievable, I think. And, you know, at the price of quarterback 27, where he's at, where he's worth, let's just put it into terms of Baker Mayfield first picks. I'm going to try and pull it up on Keep.
What is he like a mid-second? Early second?
like maybe I don't know the way that the public's acting towards Baker Mayfield right now. You think
I'd give him for a third.
you think he's worth fab? All right. Oh my god, Keep Trade Cut keeps asking me about ranking these players.
I know.
So yeah, mid-second. You're not
He's
getting a better
definitely
quarterback
very
for a
acquirable
mid-second.
if you want him.
Yeah, you're not getting a better quarterback for a mid-second.
I'm assuming that you're saying that Baker's going to be a starter in 2023. That was the other question.
Yeah, the way that the quarterback landscape is going, where you got the aging guys like, Brady just retired, Rodgers is gone. We just lost Drew Brees last year.
The thing is with Baker though, if he has another dud or below average season next year, his value tanks.
Yeah, but the thing is,
how much can
the
it
thing
tank,
is though
really?
is that he has
30.
enough good games that he's played, and he's had half a season he's good, and a rookie year that was pretty damn good. That we will see another team take a shot on him if they can get him for cheap.
I mean, if you're like, you don't have to. Teams aren't going to have to give up if he has another bad season, like a second round pick.
He might be a free agent. Didn't the Browns not take his 5th-year option?
I don't think they have yet. But we're talking like, why? Like, there's at least 6 teams I could think of that he could start for this year, pretty easily.
I mean, if not, he could try to go a Trubisky route where he backs up on a really good team for a year. And now I think the thing is, though, is that Trubisky kind of played his cards really well, and now he's in a situation where there's not a lot of quarterbacks where you kind of initially were thinking, okay, Rodgers is leaving, Russell Wilson, Watson, all these dudes, and now it's like one by one the dominoes are falling, and they're saying that they're happy and willing to stay and work it out, and the quarterbacks aren't great. But I still think, regardless, that if Baker, if it flops on the Browns next year, I still think he gets another chance, barring he doesn't look absolutely horrendous next year.
Yeah, I don't know. We've spent so much time as a podcast.
Holy crap! This podcast has already gone so long.
Yeah, all right. I'm gonna speed through a couple of these guys just to try and catch us back up. So I'll combine these two guys together because they're actually wide receiver 63 and 64 and Keep Trade Cut, and that's Laviska Shenault and Corey Davis. And so Laviska Shenault, someone that we were talking before the pod where I put him on this, and I said the hate's gone too far. Like it's the recurring theme. I wasn't in on Laviska Shenault during the season. Like he clearly wasn't having a great season, but people were still willing to give up seconds and maybe even late firsts, even a couple weeks into the season when DJ Chark got injured. For Laviska Shenault, I was never in on that price. Now we're talking about he's ranked. Sorry, I'm going to pull up Laviska Shenault right now. He's ranked somewhere around like an early third, I believe. I'm going to try and check that for accuracy. And Trevor Lawrence had a terrible rookie season, like especially for what he was. 210 is what he's ranked around. Trevor Lawrence, not a great rookie season. Obviously, you had the whole fiasco with Urban Meyer. Like, yes, I know Travis Etienne's coming, and they have somewhat similar skill sets, but this is a Jaguars team that could use weapons everywhere. Like Jamal Agnew is trying to make plays on this team. I just don't think they use Laviska Shenault right. I'm normally not one that says to go out and get underperforming wide receivers, but Laviska Shenault had a good rookie season. His second season wasn't as bad as I think people like to make it out to be. And for that reason, I'm kind of buying him. But on the flip side, and kind of conversely, is Corey Davis, who I think people just forgot about because he got injured. And Elijah Moore had a very good second half of the season. But Corey Davis, we're forgetting, had a very good season before he went to the Jets. Where on the Titans, he finished as wide receiver 30 with only 14 games. He was wide receiver 64 last year, but he missed like 6-7 games. This is a team where you're only expecting the Jets to go forward and progress because it's Zach Wilson in his second year. Corey Davis will be healthy. This is a team that's getting into their groove. And to me, Corey Davis at that price of, you're saying that there are 60 something better wide receivers than Corey Davis. I don't buy it.
Yeah, the thing with Corey Davis, and I completely agree with what you're saying. I really don't think people are going to be selling him at that price. I agree with you. I think it's because he hasn't been playing, and the keep trade cut polls, people are just putting him low. I really doubt that you could get him at that price, but
Yeah, I mean,
nonetheless,
as someone who has Corey Davis,
I still think it's worth sending out an offer for him and trying to. I think that he's one of those prime kind of dudes that you try to add into a trade for larger fish
Yeah,
and
that's
see if you can
something.
maneuver getting him for that
But
type
I
of
think
price.
you can even draft day comes, your rookie draft, which should be in like a month or so, months maybe. Um, I don't know, someone like a Dotson is on the board right around there.
Or you
could
could just try to
him.
trade back and pick him up. You know, if someone really
That's
wants
true.
to trade up, you could try to trade back and have him as part of a package or the player that you get in your trade back.
I
I
would
mean, I
move.
think the fact of the matter is that he's a receiver. You look at his points per game last year. I was just looking at it's 9.6, but you take out that game that he got injured in, where he only played like 38% of the snaps. He's around what 10 and a half points per game. That's solidly in that top 35, 34 receivers, around a Darnell Mooney type season last year where he's a solid little flex play. And if you're picking him up for this price, I mean, that's phenomenal, right? You're getting a solid receiver that can give your team some depth. It's just, I think, good luck doing it, I guess.
Yeah, I to me, this might be a little controversial, but right, you're picking at 104, say, and I'm going to take Treylon Burks off the board here at 104 because I really like Treylon Burks compared to everyone else. But Treylon Burks is off the board. You're at 104, and 108 is like, hey, I'll give you 108 and Corey Davis for this 104. I'm probably taking it.
No, I would do it for 105. No, I don't even think so. The thing is, I like the top like 5 or 6 picks in this draft a lot still.
Well, I still think one of Drake London or Garrett Wilson. If I'm confident that one of Drake London or Garrett Wilson will still be on the board at 108, I'm doing it. Because
I'm not confident you can.
The thing is, I'm taking one of those dudes at 104 and 105. Me, like,
well,
because I've got a clear top 5, and I guess the problem where we have is that I like Malik Willis right now. Is that Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, Drake London, Treylon, and Malik Willis? Those 5.
This is a weird scenario where I'm saying it now, and like the actual NFL draft will probably just shake up everything and make this all a convoluted mess. But at the current point that we're at, if I'm not that big on Malik Willis, if someone else wants to take Malik Willis ahead of me, it's fine. I'm getting Corey Davis, and I'm getting the receiver I still like and value pretty equally in Drake London or Garrett Wilson. Just getting the other one. This is how that works out in my scenario.
Okay.
Because I think Walker, Spiller, Hall will be gone. 2 quarterbacks. Yeah.
All right, who's your next buy?
All right. Last buy. This one, it's not flashy, but you could just go out and get him. And this is one of those guys who I still think he'll be a wasteland tight end, but Evan Ingram,
man,
he's a wasteland tight end, but like at the price he's at, like all these other guys are just like unproven, like haven't really done anything, young tight ends. And at least with Evan Ingram, like he's actually like shown us.
He was really good his first 2 years. Just completely fell off.
He lost his hands.
Yeah.
And his dignity. Garrett Wilson will not be on the board at 108.
I don't necessarily disagree with that.
But actually, in the Superflex rookie mock draft on the Dynasty sub today, I'm pretty sure he was picked at 108.
Yeah, see,
which shocked me.
Crazy.
I don't think it's that absurd because I think you're going to have those 3 running backs who I'm not like infatuated with. They're all going to go before 108, certainly.
Yeah,
the wild cards are guys like
barring
Spiller,
crazy
Walker,
landing spots.
The 2 quarterbacks, how people value them.
Burks will be gone. Probably the 2 quarterbacks, and then it should be London and Wilson as 107 and 108. So the quarterbacks are.
I'm agreeing. Wilson to me is in the top 2 or 3 picks. So like
I like Garrett Wilson too. I would pick Garrett Wilson over Malik Willis. I'd pick him over Kenny Pickett, but I don't know if that's what's going to be consensus. Like Kenny Pickett goes to the Washington Commanders, Malik Willis
rookie
goes
drafts
to the
be wild
Steelers.
These days, bro. Like
if that happens, if Malik Willis goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers and Kenny Pickett goes to the Washington Commanders, which is a lot of actual NFL mock drafts are saying something along those lines. Those 2 guys are going to go above are likely going to go above Garrett Wilson, which I disagree with, but I just think is going to be the case because quarterbacks are king in Superflex leagues. So, yeah, I'd rather someone else take those guys away from me. I'd rather move back, pick up my Corey Davis, and go along my way with the likes of that kind of player. Now, if I'm not confident in that, I won't do it. But right now, that's how I feel. All right. Yeah, I don't know. It's Evan Ingram. He's just
Dude, he's a waste lord.
I mean, no,
he's
like
just-
kind of what you're hoping for Ingram is kind of what Nelson Aguilar did when he left Philadelphia and went to Oakland. Like suddenly they get their hands back to let their talent take over.
I just think he's going to be one of the few like tight ends that you can actually like start.
Yeah.
You could pick him up for basically nothing, so I'm not
Yeah,
gonna hate on
that's
it.
the thing. Like he's going, like his production is going to outweigh his current value, and he's like cheap. He's super cheap. I'm not pushing him over into tight end one conversation, but he's just a cheap tight end that I think is getting a little.
All right, I'm getting into my buys here, and I'll
Okay.
go quicker than JT, hopefully.
Yeah, my bad.
The
I put
first
some kind of filter,
buy,
guys.
and I don't necessarily know if people are actively selling him. I was looking at the board today for this segment, trying to figure out who it was. And this is not someone, if you've followed the podcast, that you would expect me to say. But goddamn, Mike Williams is so undervalued for whatever reason. I think it's because of the inconsistency that people see. And I didn't like Mike Williams out of the draft. I really haven't. I've hard faded him basically every year. But now I look at him, proved me wrong at the beginning of last year, tapered off a little bit, and he was very inconsistent. But I see Mike Williams, and I'm reminded exactly of Tyler Lockett. It feels like a year or two ago, where people start to see the age. They say, "Oh, he's too inconsistent." But what I see is a guy that was a low-end wide receiver 1 in points per game last year, a guy that can put up 30 points per game any given day and can carry you, and someone who's attached to a really sick quarterback and offense, even though he's in that wide receiver 2 spot. And on top of that, he's got draft capital and good talent, right? To me, Mike Williams at wide receiver 41, I still don't love Mike Williams, but to me is just mispriced. I think that and I don't want to like this guy. I don't have him in any of my leagues, but I feel like I'm forced to see what the price is on him, because to me that just does not make sense for a receiver that is in his prime and can easily have his best season of his career next year.
Yeah, I also did not like Mike Williams a lot, but I agree with that. I'm also reading chat real quick, and Joe Herbert just said, this QB class is not king. Superflex owners need to stop falling into that trap. I agree completely with that. I just happens every year, I think. I don't know. Like, especially when people made the mistake with Justin Herbert, people are probably feeling bad about themselves passing up on Mac Jones. Not that I would have picked Mac Jones where he was getting picked either, but it happens every year where these quarterbacks are going to go higher than they should, I think. Some of these.
I still like Wilson Pickett.
So yeah, but anyway, Mike Williams, solid.
Maybe people are concerned that he's going to go somewhere else in free agency, and they don't like that. I think that the Chargers re-sign him. I've been saying that for a while now. I don't see why. They have so much cap space. He's what the Chargers want and need. As long as he's healthy, he's good. Like, I don't know. To me, and honestly, to me, if he gets the contract extension with the Chargers, I think that his value jumps up.
His value jumps, yeah. No, it's going to.
Yeah,
I think that he's a fantastic buy. The other ones, I've said this before on the podcast. JT actually said not to buy.
Although I will
performing rookies.
I'm sticking with one of them though. Go ahead.
Rondale Moore and Dimey Brown are two of my favorite rookie receivers last year at their price. I'm actively looking to acquire both of them. Some of the other second round and third round receivers that people, I guess, have soured on a little bit, guys like Nico Collins, potentially Amari Rodgers if I can get him for nothing. Same thing with Dwayne Eskridge. Like, if I could pick these guys up for pennies, listen, at this point I'm playing percentages because it's something like 43% of second round rookie receivers will have a 150-point fantasy season. That was from like 2020 before. On top of that, when second year or second round rookies break out, 30% of the time around it's in year 2, another 30% of the time it's in year 3. I think that we've gotten a little bit too impatient on some of these day 2 receivers and expect them, because of some of the successful even round 2 guys like a T Higgins and whatnot, where they play and play great immediately. We're expecting that out of all of our rookies, where I think that should be reserved for the first round picks, the guys who are given an opportunity off the bat and not having to earn it, like more so like these day 2 guys and second and third round receivers. So to me, I don't necessarily buy into the fade all face planners. I agree in the first round, but the second and third round guys, I think it's gone too far. I'll scoop them up for nothing. And even if none of them work out, didn't really cost me much.
I just think now, the likes of Diami Brown, I don't think Diami Brown just had like a great season. Same with Terrace Marshall, although I think both were slightly misused. Like, I think Rondell Moore was grossly misused by the Arizona Cardinals and Cliff Kingsbury. And to me, yeah, at whatever price he's going for right now, I'm probably trying to get Rondell Moore.
Rondell Moore, I'm definitely buying. Diami, the thing that frustrated me about Diami, he couldn't have asked for a better opportunity last season.
Yeah, Curtis Samuel.
I see. I agree. I disagree with that.
Because Curtis Samuel and Logan Thomas were both out for the majority of the year, and you have McLaurin.
Okay, you could say the same thing about McLaurin, because McLaurin was a guy that everyone thinking, oh, he's going to have a great season, he's going to be in his prime. Well, I mean, if you're going to use the offense was shit, the quarterback situation with Heineke was bad for receivers, how does that apply to McLaurin but not apply to the other receivers?
Because McLaurin is getting the entire secondary's attention. He's getting bracketed on most passing plays, which that's what I'm saying in terms of Diami's benefit. You have 2 guys focusing on McLaurin pretty much every snap because they don't have another receiving threat. You pretty much are going to have one-on-one coverage most of the time if you're Diami Brown.
Yeah, but that argument doesn't apply to the offense. That applies with the defense, and yeah, I can agree with that, but to a certain extent, I mean, we've seen guys like Devontae Adams and Cooper Kupp and whatnot just
but yeah, he's not like that level, but yeah.
But I just don't understand why the offense being bad applies to every single Washington football team player or Washington Commanders player except for Diami Brown, as a guy who was a round 3 pick, a rookie who was completely thrusted into a starting role day 1 and was expected to be the wide receiver 2 day 1, which is a role that most round 3 rookies are going to struggle with. I mean, we've seen some phenomenal round 3 rookies struggle when thrown into the fire like that. So I'm not going to hard fade Diami Brown. And I think that everyone else is hard fading the crap out of him to the point where you could pick him up for a late third. People, if you pick him up for a late third in some leagues, some people might laugh at you saying like, oh my God, you're picking up him? Like, I would have traded him for Fab. Yeah, I'll pick him up all day for that.
Well, if I told you he had essentially the same receiving grade as Terrace Marshall?
I don't care.
I mean, look, I like both those guys. I really like both of them coming out. But I just think Diami Brown and
at least
Diami
Brown didn't get healthy scratches.
I
don't think Diami Brown got a healthy scratch.
No, Diami Brown played a decent amount.
Yeah, I mean, Diami Brown also did not really have much saying that, and Terrace Marshall
who's the
lost
Panthers?
It's
actually extremely similar. Like, it's just
the thing is, when I picked Diami Brown in rookie drafts last year, I wasn't expecting Diami Brown to come out here and be the craziest receiver of all time. I saw a guy that had some traits that I really liked and thought he was a high-end developmental receiver. So, like, why am I panicking when, I mean, yeah, it was unfortunate. I would have liked him to do a little bit better, but it's not like I'm all of a sudden saying, like, Diami Brown, worst player of all time, now he's worth a 4th.
No, that'd be Seth Williams.
And he's like, if you're a first-round receiver, like, the data backs up. If you're a first-round receiver and you first-round receivers, 42% of them break out in their rookie year. So it is kind of alarming if you suck as a rookie as a first-round guy. But
Yeah.
everyone else, you're more likely to break out year 2 on. It's like 20% of day 2 on rookie receivers break out in their first year. So if we're just gonna play percentages, I'm not gonna panic. I'm just gonna use history on my side, and if I can buy all these dudes for super cheap, I feel like it's a pretty decent little deal I'm getting.
Okay.
Diamond Brown, I'm probably not actively going out and buying, but if he's on my team, I'm not selling. Where Rondale Moore, I'm probably going.
Rondale Moore, I'm buying.
That's just
1000%.
the difference for me between the two.
Yeah, Cliff Kingsbury also came out today and said that they were going to use him more, which is interesting. But
I think they are.
I think that's a bait, though.
Yeah,
Isn't
coaches say that
Christian
all the
Kirk a
time,
free agent?
Yes.
Yeah,
mean,
they have
They might let him walk.
He was hanging out with Josh Allen too in Buffalo. Christian Kirk.
Well, yeah, AJ Green is a free agent as well, which is
So
interesting.
that number 2 spot is up for grabs.
All right, real quick, I'll get into my last guys. These aren't guys that I necessarily love. It's just you have to mention them. James Robinson at RB37 is, to me, like James Robinson, I have him in 2 leagues. I actually drafted him in like most of my leagues, like 75% of my leagues as a rookie. Now I sold him one before he played, unfortunately, for a third, but I just think RB37 for what he's done is just too cheap. Listen, I'm not going to come out here and bang the table for James Robinson and saying he's going to be an RB1 or whatever. But fact of the matter is, I will take my ticket onto the roller coaster, the fast pass, and all aboard the James Robinson freaking roller coaster for that price.
I think he might be more of a look. I love James Robinson, but I think he might be more of the Tower of Terror than a roller coaster at this point. Where he's got a torn Achilles. Like I don't think he's playing it.
I don't believe in injuries, dude. I'm the guy who doesn't.
I know
you.
I know you don't, but I don't even like. Say James Robinson comes back midseason. I don't know what the timetable for return is, but I think probably like Cam Akers seem to come back too fast. Let's say he comes back midseason, James Robinson. If Travis Etienne's having even like a remotely good season, like his value is going to be pretty much down the toilet. Like I'd rather just hold out and wait on James Robinson.
Yeah, but why is everyone assuming it's one or the other? To me, it's like
it's fine.
There's
it's
two
fine,
good backs. They could both.
I get what JT's saying.
Want James Robinson? I think
the
you just
time
hold
to
out
buy.
and wait.
I think,
okay.
I agree
you could wait and.
Yeah, what JT's saying is like once Etienne plays it all and he even has like a half decent game, even with James Robinson's low price now, it's probably gonna get even cheaper then.
Okay, that's a fair point.
Yeah, because
no
one's
the other
really
one
been affected by him yet.
Yeah, the other one to me is Zeke. It's funny. The reason why I put it because I was very lukewarm on Zeke, probably even cold on Zeke last week. But I was watching a replay of I believe it was Week 8 game from last year, the Cooper Rush Dallas Cowboys primetime game against the Minnesota Vikings, and I was watching Zeke, and I was like, "Damn, he is playing really well for a defense that is." Praying that the Cowboys run the ball because they do not fear Cooper Rush beating them with his arm. And he looked great. And I was just like, damn, dude, what if I'm too low on Zeke? I have him in one league. He's a dude that could easily finish as an RB1. I can understand the concerns. Like, listen, I'm not coming out here once again pounding the table for Zeke, but RB26, less than a first round pick in this draft class. If in this economy.
I mean, no, I understand it. Especially, didn't they say he played like most of the end of last season injured after a certain point? I forgot exactly what it was. But I mean, he's gonna give you really good production. Like, so I understand.
Not completely. Sexy, but dude, he does what you ask him to do. You know,
Yeah.
You want it. If the run here is designed to get 4 yards, he's gonna get those 4 damn yards. If you need him to block, he's gonna block. Like he can catch the ball. Like obviously he doesn't have the juice. That's the argument. He doesn't have the juice that a guy like Pollard has. But my God, he is really damn consistent. And in terms of a guy that you just trust handing the football to, aside from that 2020 season where he was clearly in a funk, he was fumbling a lot. He looked like he was back last year to a guy that I just trust with the football. So RB26, once again, just seems kind of cheap for a guy of his pedigree and his talent level. And I'm not sure if I'm going to go out there and buy Zeke, but it begs the question.
I'm not going out and buying Zeke.
I might, I might for the
we're
pod.
just yeah, I mean that'd be some good content, I guess. But like we're talking Zeke versus like DeAndre Hopkins. I think I'm way more confident in
Yeah, well,
Hopkins.
Zeke is priced a decent bit cheaper than D Hop right now, I believe.
I just put it up. It's like a Marquez Valdez Scantling difference between the two.
Yeah,
So a
that's
big
like at least
difference.
3 firsts, right?
Yeah.
Well, all right. I
Yeah,
guess when
Mahomes
you put it
value.
like that.
Yeah, the thing is that I just think that Zeke is one of those dudes that a lot of the community is soured on.
Oh, certainly.
And
Yeah.
last year he was definitely worth the first. This year, I there might like RB26 is in that range where you're not getting a first round pick for him.
No, I agree. I mean, if you're a contender and you can get Zeke and you try to make a championship push for like what, a second rounder, depending on what it is.
Yeah, like
I like that
201,
move.
202, 112,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. In this draft class,
Zaquandre.
especially. Yeah.
All right. Well,
Jeff
story.
Tanner just puts in the chat Zaquandre. What about him?
Zaquandre. What about expand on your question and we'll get to you.
Right.
But okay, so guys that I'm buying, that everyone's selling. My first one was Kenny Galladay at wide receiver 67. The entire Giants offense is an absolute shit show this entire season. We're out here running QB sneaks on like second and third down. It wasn't good. No one really had a good fantasy season on that offense. But I still think he's still under contract. He's not going anywhere. They can't get out of it. He's going to be the number one next season. It would, I think, will be kind of a re-energized offense. And I mean, just 2 years ago, he was viewed as one of the top dynasty wide receivers. Like in 2019, he had a top 8 finish in half PPR. He was third in standard. In 2020, he only played 6 games, but in those 6 games in half PPR, he averaged about 14 points per game, which is like solid wide receiver 2 or flex. Then this year was just kind of a shit show. He had no touchdowns, which like the odds of that happening again, I would consider extremely low, especially like the type of receiver he is, where most of his career he's been really good at catching touchdowns. I just think wide receiver 67 is too low. I feel like he's just been completely disregarded in an offense that had like Mike Lennon and Jake Fromm being quarterback for like half the season, where like they'd finish a game with like 30 or 40 passing yards. And I think a lot of the roster also towards the end of the year kind of started to quit on Joe Judge. I think Brian Dable going in there, he's going to be the number one receiver. I still don't know what they do at quarterback. If Daniel Jones starts this year, they'll have a new one next year, or maybe they'll have a new one this year. I have no idea. But I'd see Galladay having a bit of a comeback year to the point where like he could be like a flex play for a lot of teams.
Wait, real quick for chat. Zaquandre White, I have not watched. Same thing with Ford and Zonovan Knight. I haven't got around to a lot of the running backs yet. I've gone through Isaiah Spiller, Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker, Brian Robinson, Tyler Algier, Kyron Williams. We'll cover some of those guys in the next part. I don't want to give advice where I haven't tracked these guys.
We'll get to them soon. Yeah, we're gonna be covering all these guys up until the draft.
In terms of Mr. Galladay, I thought that he was in that Corey Davis realm initially, where it's like, okay, he's wide receiver 67 on keep trade cut. Most of the people that have him aren't going to be selling him that low. He's kind of just in that Mixon paradox to a certain extent, where it's like, for those who don't know, we've coined the Mixon paradox when the people that have him just value him way more than what the market wants to give for him, so he's never getting traded. But dude, I responded to a tweet a while ago about just big wide receivers, and I said that Kenny Galladay was a hit for his draft pick, right? Guys had multiple 1,000-yard seasons, and one of which he was a wide receiver 1, and that Michael Jenkins was a miss. Well, I got a response that no, Kenny Galladay should be a miss. Michael Jenkins was more of a hit. Michael Jenkins, for those who don't know, is a former Falcons receiver, has never put up more than 800 yards in a year. I mean, he played for a while. He's a decent player, but in terms of fantasy, he's just not a hit. Whereas Kenny Galladay, before last year, had back-to-back 1,000-plus yard seasons. It was quite legitimately very fantasy relevant. Like, maybe you can get him at wide receiver. And I tweeted a couple likes. Like, it's not like it was just some random.
People are out on him.
Likes out there. Like, I think you might be able to get a snag on Kenny Galladay.
Yeah, people are out on him. I know Keep Trade Cut has its value as like a super late second or slightly below that. which I think he's gonna have a decent year. Like nothing like insane, but like I said, I think he's gonna be someone that you could play at your flex. Like all those other Giants receivers, I do like Tony a lot. He has to prove he can stay healthy. Shepard, Slayton are always in and out of the lineup. Galladay stayed healthy all of last year. It was just a shit show on offense. So I think he's going to be their consistent number one, and I think Dable's going to figure out ways to get him the ball and use him better. So he's my first one. My next is Cortland Sutton. He's dropped to wide receiver 47. I feel like, I mean, I know last year was disappointing, but we just saw what he was 2 years ago, fully healthy, when he blew up on that one season. I think he had like 1,200 yards or something. Then last year, the end of last season, there was a stretch where he had like a really quiet stretch of games, and I think like that stretch just completely plummeted his value. I'm just confused on like Judy didn't really play well during that stretch either. Yet Judy is ranked significantly higher than Sutton, and what, he's maybe how many years younger? 2 years younger.
There it is. He's that many years younger.
Like, yeah, and it's not like Judy was like way outplaying him in that stretch. Yet he gets the benefit of the doubt, and Sutton doesn't. When Sutton has done it on the NFL level, not that I dislike Judy, but I'm saying like I don't agree with the big drop off between the two. I think if you're banking on Judy being that high because they're going to get Rodgers or they're going to get someone, then Sutton shouldn't be in the 40s at receiver.
That gets a big old JT stamp of approval on that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we'll do some of those running backs next week. I was kind of busy this week. I do like force missed tackle tracking for the running backs, so I didn't want to like.
Wait. I'm interested in this. Jeff Tanner, how late did you get Galladay in your startup?
Yeah, so Jeff Tanner wants us to guess how late he got him. I'm gonna say
probably really late.
So I was looking at some startup stuff the other day. I'm pretty sure Rondale Moore is going around round 13 in Superflex startups. I'm going to assume this is a Superflex startup. That means I'm going to say Galladay 16. That's my answer. What do you guys?
16?
I wouldn't even be surprised if it was slightly lower.
You mean like slightly further down?
Yeah, like around like 18 or something.
I'm just thinking now.
17.
Don't look in chat. Dude, why Lounis?
I'm sorry.
Lounis.
That's basically 16. That's basically
he redacted his message.
Yeah,
it's okay. It's okay. We already.
I mean, I probably would have guessed.
But yeah, like no,
I would have guessed
17th round is insane value.
I probably
that is
said,
crazy.
Like
17-1 for a dude that 2 years ago put up back-to-back 1,000-yard years.
He was a top 10 receiver. And how old is he still? He's still 28 years old. Like he should be in his prime right now. He was healthy most of last year. Yeah, I like Galladay still. So Sutton was my other one. I have two more quick. I'll rush through. Will Fuller. He's at wide receiver 79. I feel like every offseason we say Will Fuller is by. I know this one it kind of flopped.
Dude, he's the new Sammy Watkins to me, though. Like low key.
It's just, man, but it's not an ability thing for me because with Sammy Watkins, it eventually became like, oh, even when he was healthy, he wasn't that great. Like I feel when Fuller plays, he always puts up like decent numbers. It's just the health thing. We're to the point where I would like, what if I can get Will Fuller for like an early third? I'd do that any day of the week, which is where his value is around at 79.
Yeah,
it's decently.
You could definitely get Fuller for an early third if you wanted to from some people.
Yeah, like that. I like because it's just the upside is so high compared to some of the dart throws that are going to be in the third round, especially in this draft.
Yeah, but would you rather have Fuller way more confidently than a guy like Mechie right now? Because I think that's around where a guy like Mechie's going, or potentially a Skyy Moore. We're going to touch on him in a second here.
I like Fuller.
You like Fuller more? I liked Fuller a lot coming out. I have him in the 3rd and 20 league. I don't hate him. It's just, I think that's a legitimate debate.
No, that's fair. It's close between those guys, but I just like wide receiver 79 is kind of crazy. And my last one, it's another receiver, Curtis Samuel, wide receiver 65. He's going to be the number 2 in that offense next year. Last offseason, after he signed with Washington, he was at wide receiver 35. And he's dropped 30 spots because he was injured most of this year. I expect them to improve their quarterback situation. They signed him to play that number 2 receiver role. Rivera still likes him. There's going to be a lot of targets up for grabs. McLaurin's been begging for a consistent number 2 next to him so he doesn't get like as focused on. And he's someone who's actually had like some production. Like his last healthy season, he had over 1,000 scrimmage yards. I think he was wide receiver 24, 25 that last year in Carolina before signing with Washington. And his value right now is around like a late second. Like you can get him, and I kind of prefer him at 25 years old over some of those guys in the late second round. He hasn't really been an injury prone player throughout his career, especially recent. It's just kind of that 1 year he had that nagging injury, then he needed surgery. He was never able to get quite healthy, but I think there's a lot of room for him to produce on offense, especially if it just takes like a late second. Like if I can get him for like a 210, 211, I would do that trade. Because like who's in that range? Like you said, like Mechie, like I'd much rather have him than like a Mechie.
Well, what's interesting to me is that we've seen the what's its names? The Travis Etienne's and the J.K. Dobbinses and those, even D Hop, the blue chip injured players have risen already. Like we've seen, you could look at the keep trade cut data; it backs it up, right? The guys from the end of the season until now, what are we at? Very March 1st. They've already risen, and they might keep rising until training camp and around there, especially if they get some hype. We have not really seen that from this Curtis Samuel tier, the Kenny Galladay tier, where these kinds of receivers that they're not the most coveted players, but everyone can agree that they're pretty good and probably undervalued right now. We haven't really seen them been gaining the traction and the hype yet, which I do think is going to come. So you might honestly be able to, like Jeff Tanner did, pick up a guy like that at the very, like a super late round in the startup and trade him for just more come the start of the year, as long as he has that spot on the depth chart that you're expecting him to have.
Mm-hmm.
Any one of
I
these
like that
guys.
strategy.
Yeah, and they will. I mean, I expect Curtis Samuel to be Washington's number 2 receiver and Galladay's to be the Giants' number 1. So at those like value for how much they've dropped, especially like Curtis Samuel was just injured for the year and he dropped 30 wide receiver rankings. He's still young, only 25. I still like him. So now,
All right, you guys want to get into prospects?
Yeah.
Who you want to do first?
I was actually going to throw that up to you because I have. Let's do Skyy Moore first because I'm a little bit more confident right now in my eval of Skyy Moore.
Oh, okay.
To me, Justyn Ross, I'm a little all over the place with him, but
Justyn Ross is tough to.
Okay.
Yeah, he's the ultimate wild card.
To me, Skyy Moore, really, really interesting receiver. I actually am probably a little bit higher on consensus on Skyy Moore, than consensus, I guess. To me, my pro comp, I feel like he's almost like a shorter Adam Thielen. He wasn't really asked to run a very complex route tree, but if you look at the nuance in his routes, his release, I mean, you could put up a highlight tape of just his releases. Like he's got some nasty footwork. Really, his hands on these slant routes and these RPOs, these glances are really great. The way that he uses, it's almost like coach's tape. The way that he uses his hands on these routes, right? And that's why it reminds me a little bit of Adam Thielen, because he's a guy in terms of using his hands on the release on these slants and whatnot, I think is really great. I think that he's primarily a slot dude, but if you look at the film, like he lined up a lot on the outside. I mean, a decent amount in the slot as well, but that gives me hope that he could be a guy that can line up at a couple of different positions, which I think NFL GMs might like. And overall, I think he has pretty dang nice polish for a non-Power 5 receiver. I think that you compare him to, like, let me think of one. Who's that Cowboys dude? Gallup.
Gallup.
Yeah, if you look at a guy like Gallup, right, who is a pretty damn good non-Power 5 receiver, I think that personally Skyy Moore is right up with him there as a prospect. But you have the major question mark, which arguably isn't major as long as he gets the draft capital, is his athleticism. I think that the big problem is that, like, at the top of his routes, he's just not creating the separation that you would expect, given how shifty he is and how good his footwork seems to be, and his routes are pretty good, which could, like, I mean, this is kind of a cop out saying, oh, well, his upside isn't going to be high because he's not an athlete. To me, it's just like a little bit of a concern. right? Where if he's getting matched up and asked to be a number 2 receiver in the NFL and be and line up on the outside, like Adam Thielen is asked to do, right? Where he needs to beat one-on-one coverage in the red zone, is that going to impact him as a player at the next level and keep him from being that high-end wide receiver 2-esque player that you can pick up for cheap? That's the big concern I have with him.
I think I feel like I'm way higher on his route running than you are. I think he is up there for not number 1, but like up there in that top 3, top 5 discussion for best route runners of this draft class.
I mean, dude, he's got some. I'm about to play a clip here.
His route running is
receiver.
insane.
He puts this corner on the ground with this release.
So for me, what he kind of reminded me of, kind of reminds me a bit of like a Hunter Renfrow or a little bit of Elijah Moore coming out last year, where it's just like some of these releases. I don't think he's as talented as Elijah Moore because of like the athleticism thing, but that's why I kind of like the Renfrow comp. He makes corners like just ankles break as soon as he gets off the line of scrimmage. He's so quick. I know he's not like a straight line speed, which Frank mentioned, like getting separation at the top of routes, but that intermediate passing game, I think he can just like eat any corner alive, especially coming out of the slot.
Yeah, I wanted to show that play. JT, you can just give me a second here. I wanted to show that play just because that's the flashy one. But like, this is what gives me a lot of hope for him, is that this type of play here, I'm pretty sure is an RPO from what I have in my notes. This safety here is lined up with good leverage. I mean, he's basically where this route is supposed to go, this glance here. But you see that Skyy Moore is able to put his foot in the ground, make a catch through contact against a defender with good leverage. And this is a Pittsburgh defense that's pretty good, that has notoriously a pretty darn good secondary. So like,
yeah,
I think he has enough of those types of plays for me on film that give me enough confidence in him to firmly, as of right now, barring catastrophic draft capital, mid-second round pick, I'd be pretty confident in. I think you can land him there in most mocks right now.
So my things with Skyy, I have a lot of thoughts. So I think first we'll be able to tell more about his athletic ability in the coming days as the combine's just about to start happening. But I guess we'll do a whole episode next week about that too, probably. But my thing is, if D. Eskridge was able to get drafted in the second round by the Seahawks, I see no reason why Skyy Moore.
I like Skyy Moore more as a prospect.
Yeah, I see no reason.
It is the Seahawks, though. We got to like.
Yeah, no, the Seahawks. It's like a wild card.
I mean, I confidently think he should be a day 2 pick. Whether that's the second or third round, yet to be seen. He's easily in my top 10 in terms of wide receivers. I probably have him.
Skyy Moore just sounds like a baller. Skull,
Yeah.
that's so true. Any of the Moores, dude. If your last name is Moore, I'm probably gonna want you in these dynasty drafts.
So what I noticed though, which is interesting about Skyy Moore, is he's kind of he picked up the Wan'Dale Robinson drumbeat. Like there started to be surfaced a lot more, question marks about Wan'Dale Robinson, especially concerning his height. Where like there are pictures of Wan'Dale Robinson next to Rondale Moore, who was, beat to death about his height. And Wan'Dale Robinson was shorter than Rondale Moore, pretty clearly based on the pictures. Yeah. So a lot of people started to turn to Skyy Moore, which I don't necessarily disagree with. I think if you're looking to try and find someone who's kind of a diamond in a rough, I think a lot of people are turning to Christian Watson, who we might touch on later, but I think Skyy Moore is the better bet.
Same.
I just think because of the situation that Skyy Moore is in and the fact that this is a pretty loaded receiver class, that he's just going to be pushed back far enough in these drafts where I am pretty darn happy landing him. I saw in the Reddit Superflex rookie mock draft today, he went in the early third, I believe, or like mid third, which to me, I would love that. And I think that there is a realistic shot that you can consistently nab him in the late second. So I think that Skyy Moore right now, his value is going to be really nice. And he's a player that I'm definitely targeting if I have those early thirds, very late seconds. So, because I just think that value is great. I would, like I said before, I probably have, if I were to do a draft tomorrow or today, a mid second round grade on him. I think the problem though is that with those mid seconds, I'm just going to take a guy like Jahan Dotson over him right now in that mid second
I might take Sam.
consistently.
I could tell you as someone I have
like
I
Moore
have
better.
208. I have 208 in our league. Obviously, it's gonna depend on where he goes with draft capital, but he's someone just early on that I'm like, I like Skyy Moore is someone that I'm looking at that spot.
Yeah, that's just the big concern is that you don't want to see him go mid day 3. And I mean, listen, I've
Exactly,
wildly
exactly.
missed on receivers with my evals before. I had Cade Johnson last year from South Dakota State. I thought that he was gonna go like I think late 3rd round, early 4th, and he didn't even get fucking drafted. And he was a
Yeah,
dude that I
tough.
liked like a Skyy Moore. I'm like, oh, dude, this is a low key dude. I like his value, and then poof, there it goes.
Yeah, I mean, once you don't get drafted on day 2, kind of all bets are off for me.
I think Skyy Moore is gonna just kill out the combine. Like I don't think his 40 times gonna be good, but those like 3-cone drills, a lot like the route running quickness drills, I think he's gonna be one of the top performers out of the receivers heading to the combine.
Yeah, I guess the last thing, and this is what really puts it over the edge for me, is that I look at the film, and to me, he's a smart player. He knows when he's hot,
Yeah.
right? He knows when he's in, like a clip I show, when he's in poor leverage scenarios, he's just a gamer. He's able to make these plays happen that you feel like he shouldn't be able to. And if that translates to the next level, I mean, those are the little things that can really separate you from being a meddling receiver that's just kind of the receiver 3, receiver 4 on the roster to being a guy that's getting 100 targets plus. You know, just those little things that you like about his game. All right, let's move into Justyn Ross. And to me, Justyn Ross, JT, I know that you're going to be higher on him.
Yeah,
I'm higher on
I
him.
am all over the place with him.
I could kick off the intro on Justyn Ross.
Yeah.
So Justyn Ross came from Clemson, played with T. Higgins, Trevor Lawrence, had a crazy, like, unheard of freshman year where his yards per route run, I'm trying to pull it up. I know Smart Football.
I think it was like
out.
4.5.
No, I think his freshman year yards per route run was
it was ridiculous.
6.94.
He had
Versus single
1,000
coverage.
yards as a true freshman.
6.94. Putting that, like, Treylon Burks was 5.24, Wan'Dale Robinson 4.5, Drake London 4.22, just to put it into context, right? Like, crazy good freshman season. Was just super dominant right off the gates. 2019, he had a similarly, like, very solid year. Didn't improve, which we know Frank wants to see improvement. And then 2020 came out that he had a spine injury or neck injury, one of the two. And with that, yeah. So he needed, like, surgery on that and had to take off his 2020 season. And then came back in 2021 and kind of had a letdown season, I'd say. Now, people could blame DJ. I'm gonna butcher this.
Uiagalelei.
Yeah, we all know who I'm talking about. But yeah, all right. So here's the thing. Skull Dynasty is saying Jaguars are going to draft him in the 3rd round to pair him with Trevor Lawrence. I think that would actually be a very smart idea. Just get someone he's comfortable with. I think that's the easiest way to kind of ease Trevor Lawrence back into the NFL, like, kind of help slow down the game.
I would love that.
You're comfortable with. We've seen teams do it, like, very recently. It seems to be more of a trend where Tua, Joe Burrow, like, they're all getting their
Devontae Smith.
Yeah, Devontae Smith and Jalen Hurts. They're all getting their receivers from college. And I think that's a good idea. Now, Justyn Ross is such a weird player to me too, where he's a wild card where I can't put him in my top 4. I can't. But could I put him at 5? I think I might be able, like, I think I could see a world where he's my 5th. He's tall. He's not, like, thick, but he's a 6'4", like 210-pound receiver, I think is what he was coming in at. It's just the injuries and the lack of improvement from his albeit amazing freshman season do give me question marks. But in a year where there's not a lot going on after my 4 favorite wide receivers, I think I'm putting him at my 5th.
His upside is as good as anyone outside of, like, that top 3 or 4 for me. It's just, like, the medicals have to check out. I agree with Joe in the chat. Like, if his medical checks out, his upside, because I thought, like, when he was a freshman at Clemson, I was so high. Like, I thought he would be the wide receiver 1 by the time he declared. I thought he was I thought I actually kind of liked him more than T. Higgins during Justyn Ross's freshman year, which is a bit of a hot take, but the plays I saw him in the national championship just bullying these Alabama
Yeah.
corners who ended up getting drafted in like first and second round. And he was just abusing them the entire game, making contested catches over all of them. So man, if he can like stay healthy, it's just health. Like that's the only thing with him. Can he get back to how he was before? I'm not gonna kill him for his last season at college. I'm kind of more annoyed with the sophomore year where he didn't do as well before the injury than I am with the year after the injury. But his upside is ridiculous. Where do you guys think he goes with rookie drafts right now? Like later second, mid second?
Yeah, second, very early third, I think is where he's going consistently in mock.
Like his value there, if he stays healthy,
I'm
that could be a
picking him all
huge
day
deal.
at that point.
And the thing is that I'm usually not the type of guy that's like, oh, well, I'm going to make excuses for why he didn't produce. But like, I'm watching some of these games and like, dude, they're kind of right. DJ Uiagalelei sucked. Like he was really
he was terrible.
Like I'm showing this is just one play from just one game, this Georgia Clemson game where Justyn Ross is up top. Like Justyn Ross does a great job slightly bending this route outside, finding the hole in the zone, sits down, is ready for the ball. And DJ just doesn't throw it. Like, I mean, you can just look through the entire year and this is happening consistently. But at the same time, I see the upside, but I'm going to be the Debbie Downer here. I think right now for me, Justyn Ross, if I were to bet it, I think he's going day 3. I think he's going to be a 4th round, 5th round kind of guy. And I think the big problem I have is that, so if we want to pull up this national championship game,
if his medical scares some NFL teams, he's going to drop a ton. So
yeah, well, the medical, I have no idea, right? I've gone on before. I have no idea. But this is what scares me is that I think that his athleticism and his just overall, how do I put this in words? Like his separation at the top of his routes. And on top of that, not just at the top of his routes in terms of separation with route running, but like, you know how you have those bigger receivers because he's 6'4", he's a big ass dude. You look at a guy like T. Higgins, when it's at the catch point, T. Higgins isn't creating separation necessarily by just yossing guys off the route, right? He's creating separation with his frame and the fact that his arms are long, he's strong, right? He positions himself well throughout the route. Which is what leads to that little bit of space for him to catch the football, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing this national championship game. Granted, he's a true freshman, but this is Patrick Surtain up here. This is a good-ass corner. We all know.
Yeah.
And this is kind of everything I fear of Justyn Ross is that, okay, he's all right. He can kind of get open, but he's not going to beat you with his route running. I don't see him play strong enough to outposition dudes. And I don't think he does an extraordinary job of going up for the football in these contested catch scenarios. So where does he win at the next level for me? That's my big question mark. How is he going to win? I mean, he's got a couple great routes, right? I think his wheel route from the slot is phenomenal, right? I think that's his best route. I think in terms of, like we saw in that first clip, finding holes in zones and sitting down and whatnot, like, I think he's good. I think he could be a decent player. But I'm going to disagree on the whole. I think he could be a top tier wide receiver 1 upside for now, unless the NFL invests highly in him. And then the last point I want to make is that, okay, yeah, he had a good national championship. He was doing stuff against Alabama corners, but let's not act like the guys that he was going up, because Savion Smith was the dude that he was matched up with for the most part. It was an undrafted corner. I actually kind of liked Savion Smith low key, but he was torching Savion Smith. He has that play where he just like pushes him down. Savion Smith gets injured and he outruns the secondary. And then they bring in this backup corner who's also, like, it was just a mismatch. They're literally, Trevor Lawrence is looking at it pre-snap. He knows where he's going. Dude, he's got some backup on him. And he was making him look foolish the whole game. Because you have T. Higgins on the other side that, okay, yeah, if you put Surtain on Justyn Ross, like, guess where I'm going? I'm going right to T. fucking Higgins, So, to me, I have a wide range on Justyn Ross. I could see him going to the 3rd. I could see him going to the 6th. So my eval on him is all over the place, but I think I'm more pessimistic than everyone else.
Well, I think he's one of the receivers or just any skill player where I think his draft capital affects him than like a normal receiver.
1000%.
Yeah, if he's a day 3 pick, I'm treating that as all right. That sucks. Like, I'll
Yeah,
try
I'm
and
out on
steal
him if
in
he goes
the.
like 5th round or something.
I'm not out on him, but like I'm not drafting him in the 2nd for sure.
Yeah.
So if he
Someone
goes in the
else there.
3rd round of the NFL draft, let's say
rocket ship,
like
to the
mid
moon.
to
Oh, if he
late
goes
3rd.
Justin
3rd
Ross.
round,
I'm taking him.
yeah,
He's
He's
not
Like
second
around
round
where
pick.
like not Nico, what's his name? Josh Palmer went, like pick 80. Like top
If he-
5, 100%.
if he goes,
Ross is like so much better, such a better prospect than Josh Palmer. If you take out the medical issues, which I know you can't take out, but like Justyn Ross, like we saw
He's
his
way more
freshman
talented.
season. Yeah, there's just way more going for Justyn Ross than Josh Palmer. Josh Palmer just put up like 3 or 4. I forget. He was a senior when he came out, right? It was like 4 straight seasons of like 700 yards. College.
Yeah.
I'm just speaking stats. I don't know if that's actually true, but there just was not much from Josh Palmer. Where at least Justyn Ross, there's something for us to hang on to.
Yeah, there are a decent amount of traits that are good. He's got fantastic hands. I mean, you've seen plenty of ball. Like, he doesn't need 2 hands to catch a football. He can catch it with one. I mean, he's got that one play in the national championship where like he reaches behind him and just palms the football.
yeah,
I mean, you see plenty of times. I was saying his best route's that wheel route. I mean, there's plenty of times where a guy's like holding him and he just comes down with the football with one hand, which you've seen a lot of receivers are now being taught that at these receiver camps and whatnot.
I gave Josh Palmer way too much credit. It was 3 straight seasons after freshman year where he didn't do anything. Well,
the thing is that he looked
yards.
really good at the Senior Bowl to me. No one could cover him at the Senior Bowl.
If anyone viewing this wants to know why, like some of us like Josh, just go watch that national championship highlights. What he was doing, like that catch Frank was referring to, was absolutely insane. He was doing that as like an 18-year-old or 19-year-old. I saw someone he could be the next Tylan Wallace. I think he's just, if he's healthy, I think he's way more talented than Wallace.
Well, yeah. The other thing too, though, is that Tylan Wallace did get day 3 capital. So like if Justyn Ross goes pick 80, right, middle of the 3rd round, early middle of the 3rd round, like a guy like Palmer. I mean, the NFL's telling you that they like Ross a lot more than they like Tylan Wallace, which is interesting.
Yeah,
he definitely is a guy that I have no idea where to put.
We don't give Jake nearly as much flack as I get for Terrace Marshall that Jake should get for Tylan Wallace. Jake was all over Tylan Wallace.
I liked Tylan Wallace, but then like he just faded off to me as the process went on.
Yeah, no, it's
this
true.
is injustice.
Jake's running.
All right. Anything else we want to touch on before we wrap it up?
Who would you say your pro comp for Justyn Ross is? I was struggling to think of one.
Ooh,
I get too stuck on the height and weight, but like he's like a
6'4" lanky dude. He's almost kind of like a basketball player.
Yeah.
In a perfect world with like 100th percentile outcomes, you kind of hope he can be Galladay.
Galladay?
Justyn Ross?
Yeah, you think?
I just think that Galladay plays a lot stronger than him. It's he's almost kind of like a budget Devontae Smith.
I was thinking Devontae, but he's.
Oh, you think Devontae
different?
Smith?
Yeah,
they are different. They don't like you don't watch Justyn Ross and think Devontae Smith, but I'm just trying to think off the top of my head.
Let's see if a random website has the one. I'll see what people are saying.
Because I feel like a lot of the other 6'4" lanky kind of guys, they have just that ridiculous speed. And not that Justyn Ross is fast in like a straight line and whatnot, but maybe it's because of his play strength. I for whatever reason, I feel like he's not as great at positioning himself on these deep routes and stacking corners as I expect him to be. Because he does, like, he profiles as a deep threat, and he has some really good plays when especially with Trevor Lawrence when he would target him deep. But felt like you didn't get that on tape as much last year.
Yeah, no.
I'm searching for.
I can't find one that someone wrote online.
Chat, we got any pro comps? Any good ideas? Joe Herbert, I know you've got one up your
I'm literally
sleeve.
just going through all the players right now, and I don't see like. I mean, honestly, it's like a cop out, but like a less. skilled T Higgins, honestly. Like, trying to
Yeah.
look at anyone like.
Yeah, but T Higgins, once again, he plays big, dude. T Higgins is a dude that like kind of likes to play physical and likes to kind of out jump you.
I don't know. It's kind of funny to me, all these Clemson wide receivers, like the 6'4" Clemson wide receivers, Mike Williams, T. Higgins, Justyn Ross, like they're all
Go
they got
back further.
mold.
Go back further.
Yeah,
Sammy
Sammy
Watkins,
Watkins.
DeAndre Hopkins.
They've got mold.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got a type.
Well, you mentioned Nico Collins. Do you think like
Yeah, kind
Yeah.
of. I don't know how
we're kind of
thick
grasping?
Collins is. Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to think of one off the top. I couldn't think of one when I was watching him, so I was just figured I'd beg the question.
All right, well, I
Yeah,
think
no,
it's a
I
good
can't
place.
find
We're just gonna throw out a bunch of names. So with that, I think I'll just wrap us up here. Season 2, episode 30. Thank you all for listening. We love interacting with the chat. It was a solid chat today, I'd say. Like a lot of
Thank you guys.
Skull Dynasty saying a taller Terry Glenn.
That's interesting.
I did not expect
Yeah,
Terry
it's
Glenn
kinda
being
out of the
brought
blue.
into here.
Terry
Yeah,
Glenn.
right.
Okay. I respect that though. I like when people pull out like the most.
Yeah, that's
names, to be
creative.
honest.
I'll give him credit. Way more creative than we were.
Yeah.
All right, but thank you everyone for listening. Make sure to like, subscribe, I don't know, all that fun stuff.
Comment.
Thank you everyone.
See you guys.